All right, good. You're in. I've got a big 3, 2, 1 countdown appeared on the screen, and off we go. So, good morning and welcome to our first webinar of the year. We've had a bit of a break. December was a quiet month. It feels a bit unusual being back in this seat and caffeined up and ready to talk to you all. But thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to all our guests, who I will come on to introduce in a short while. The topic of today's webinar is 2024 in review and strategies for a profitable 2025. And to help us have a really good broad round conversation, we've brought together a great group of guests. I was trying to count them, 4 guests from a real variety of backgrounds, covering seller, vendor, advertising, and in-house in a brand as well. I'll come to introductions from those guys in a second. For those that haven't joined one of our webinars before, I'm Andy Banks. I'm one of the founders of VentureForge, and we're an Amazon agency that works with £2 to £10 million brands to help them build a more profitable, more successful, and more commercially viable Amazon business. Much less about me now. Let's start introducing you guys. And Travis, I'm going to start in the top left of the screen. Would you mind saying hello and introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everyone. Hey, everyone. I'm Travis, head of vendor services here. I've been in the sort of agency game probably about 2 years, but at VentureForge about 6 months only. So still early days, but really enjoying it. Background is Amazon. Started my career at Amazon. I was more in the health and beauty sector, worked with brands like L'Oreal, Johnson & Johnson, Calcorp, Sanctuary Spa. So quite a lot of beauty knowledge. Yeah, I'll give you the lowdown on the best moisturizers to use, those types of good things, but good to be on the other side of the table.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Trav. So I've got plenty of vendor questions to come in your direction later on. Joe, you're second on my screen. Would you like to say hello to everyone?
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Jo. So I work for a brand. So I work for Faith and Nature at the moment. Been here for almost 3 years now, looking after the Amazon account, so UK, and then we're also expanding internationally. Prior to that, I've got more experience in Amazon. So I'm about 8 years deep in my little Amazon world. And prior to that, I was the other side of the table working in buying at Boots.
So good, really good background and a fantastic brand that you work in, Faith in Nature.
Thank you.
So 8 years in Amazon. How have you lasted?
Well, I don't know. I think I've aged considerably more than 8 years over that time.
Maybe some of the moisturiser that Travis has been sending across. But Jake, you're next in the firing line.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm Jake, one of the paid advertising managers here at VentureForge. And essentially, my job at VentureForge is all things PPC and advertising. So, essentially running top-level strategies, implementation, optimization, and all good things PPC. So, I've been in the Amazon space, I think, around about 8 years as well. I'm coming into my 3rd year with VentureForge.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Jake. I've got plenty of ads questions for you, especially given all the time you spent with Amazon last year in America. So be prepared. And Emma, good morning.
Last but not least. So I'm Emma, head of seller at VentureForge, newly appointed. So I'll be coming into near enough my 2nd month within the business. Prior to this, I've got around 12 years of experience working in e-commerce. So that's either within e-commerce agencies, being a client managed by agencies, and then in the last 2 to 3 years, I've been solely concentrating on the minefield that is Amazon itself. So using all my knowledge from the e-commerce and online retail world and bringing that and channeling it into Amazon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. I love the way that whenever you start to talk about Amazon, everybody almost goes into counselling mode, and it's kind of like, oh, we've worked on for 8 years, we've survived on a couple of years, it's hard graft. But hopefully we can help people with a bit of a mini counselling session today and help give them
good therapy session.
Absolutely. Before we jump into questions, I've got a few questions to help us shape the conversation up. I would like to find out a little bit more about the people that are watching. I think we've got the best part of 60 people on. We've got another 30 registered due to join, but we've got enough to make the poll work. I'd be really keen to find out a bit more about you as a brand, you people that are watching this. What are the areas of your Amazon strategy in 2025 that are your top priority? And if we've got this right, that poll should appear on the screen for you all to answer in the next couple of seconds if Whitney's there. There we go. So yes, which of the following areas of Amazon strategy is your biggest priority for 2025? We've got a few options there. I've got my own thoughts on this, but I think it's always interesting to see how these polls shape up. Is it optimizing listings and content? Is it managing and scaling ad campaigns? Is it more about your operational efficiency? Is it leveraging, I need more caffeine, leveraging competitor and pricing insights, driving customer trust and reviews, or is it something else that's got your interest at this point in time for 2025? Let's see how that's coming through. Not quite as polarizing as some of our polls. Sometimes you see there's a huge kind of 50-60% jump into one answer immediately. So actually I've got a fairly good, decent spread here, but the bulk are going into product listings and content. Operational efficiency is jumping up. That's been a very common thread for us with a number of our clients. I'm sure we'll come on to that today. Jake, you're only in third place with our campaigns. People don't seem to be as interested in scaling our campaigns this time.
Disappointing. That's usually a popular one.
You can go get a cup of tea, buddy. Bro, look, thank you for that. It's always good. It helps me shape up where some of the conversation might go today and make sure that we get you, the guys that have given up time to listen to us, as much value as we can. Whilst I've got questions prepped to help us shape up a conversation, we also want to give you the chance to ask your questions of all of our guests and myself today. So if you want to use the questions area, bottom right-hand corner, you should have a little questions icon. Start getting your questions into there. Some of our team may be around in the background to bob some answers in, but we will come to a 10-15 minute Q&A session at the end. Okay, we're 6 minutes in. Let's start with some questions, guys, and let's get the conversation going. We're starting here with a bit of a look back 2024 in review before we go on to look at 2025. Can I just ask each of you, just maybe summarize, how did Amazon feel to you in 2024? What was the focus? Where was your time spent? What did the year feel like in summary? Any volunteers?
Something from seller. So from seller side, it definitely had its highs and lows. I think Amazon will always have that. I think with the changes in algorithms and how Amazon work, it's forever trying to catch up and work with them well. Profitability, as it always does, but it felt like profitability took way more front and center of part of our strategic discussions over the course of last year, whether that's the cost of selling on Amazon, the cost of the products. We're really working heavily on margin and profitability with majority of our clients, and discussions around like the breakfast roundtables, etc. So for us, it really did have highs and lows, a lot more highs, but the lows and the challenges were based around profitability and margin.
Yeah, I can fully agree with that. I think last year for us in the vendor department was making Amazon work for you. Obviously Amazon, especially during AVN season, I know that's the classic sort of line. Amazon always comes with their asks, but being able to step back, really reassess, is this valuable for my business, or am I just sort of trying to appease the Amazon overlords? 3 years ago, selection was the main focus. I'm sure everyone remembers on vendor. Amazon was like, list everything, like selection, customer obsession. Whereas now I think they're taking a step back, and like Emma mentioned, profitability is a big focus, margin matching, private labels also. Amazon's private label is coming to the frame rapidly, so we're having to compete with that on price parity. So it's been a bit of a challenging year, in all honesty, also because Amazon's going direct to brand now. So a lot of resellers, a lot of distributors are struggling with Amazon essentially, lack of a better words, purging a lot of vendor accounts, and they're going direct to brand because obviously that increases operational efficiency, better pricing, better terms, and just quicker turnaround directly dealing with the brand. So yeah, quite a challenging year, but looking forward to 2025.
You say that now, Travis.
Yeah, I know. I say it through sort of gritted teeth, but we all enjoy a challenge.
Fantastic. Jake, what about you from an ads perspective? How would you summarise 24?
I think just to touch on some of those last points, yeah, definitely with a lot of clients I've worked with, profitability was front and foremost, with margin squeeze from a number of different aspects, from fulfillment and other areas. Usually when profitability comes into question, that's when ads budgets get questioned, and you've got to be really tight with the advertising. So definitely from that standpoint, there was a lot around working with clients to get the most out of their advertising budgets and understand where that budget is best spent, how we can utilize it at the right time of day and in the right advertising formats to make sure we maximize ROI. There was definitely a pullback on certain upper funnel advertising. And I think, every year on Amazon, we see CPC's competitiveness go up. It's no different this year. We saw that increase on Amazon. But alongside that, it was pretty kind of exciting year for advertising in terms of features and functionality. Probably the biggest rollout of new features this year that we got the test and trial with many things still in beta. And I think, the biggest difference where Amazon has kind of had a step change is giving us a lot more data on advertising, which has been quite stringent in the past. So that's been really interesting to see the different data and sources of data utilizing our decision making for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Jake. And then Joe, you're stuck right in the middle of this with a business that sells on Amazon. You've got vendor, reseller, you've got third-party exclusive resellers. I understand seller, real mix of it. How's it?
Everything. Yeah, everything's going on. I mean, I don't know whether I'm going to say it was a really good year because we've obviously had a break over Christmas and I've forgotten about the chaos of last year. But I feel like it was a really good year for us. It was really strong growth. We expanded into the market, so that growth was really good. But obviously, then that comes with its own challenges for if you're like a small to medium company. So I would say possibly the majority of my challenges last year were more internal rather than actually with Amazon themselves. And like all you guys said, it's actually about making that growth sustainable and actually really looking into things like especially AVN. I know that we're in that time period again, but that was quite tricky at the start of the year because I think we're at a point where you just have to almost like rip up the rule book a little bit, don't you? And look into where are you getting value and really hold firm on that and don't just accept what Amazon are going to say. But obviously there's all those other challenges that you've just mentioned as well, Andy. So it's I'd probably sum it up as hectic, I think. Good.
I think it's very easy to jump into what was challenging. I think overall, certainly what I've seen in our client numbers and every client we've got connected to our reporting tech, whether we manage them or not, it was a positive year from a commercial point of view. Amazon as a channel is still growing. Clients and brands are still seeing growth in that channel. But interesting, I think some of the points we shared is more typical of where Amazon are as a business in their own life cycle now, and also the challenges that growth and those changes then pose on brands like yourself, Joe. So I think Emma and Trav, where you came from, that more commercial view on the world that's coming from Amazon. Amazon's gone through a COVID world of boom, 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 build warehouses for fun and expand and grow. You called out, Trav, as that whole selection piece, list everything, get more news in that growth mode. And now they've come into the more mature part of their business life cycle where, dare I say, there's a bit of consolidation going on. Amazon are looking particularly on vendor, massive focus last year on net PPM. Where do we make money? Emma, on your seller side of the world, fees going up, trying for Amazon to drive that profitability out of their own business. They've really become much more commercial. But I think, Jake, on your side of the world, everything you said was more new features, exciting. You've still got a growth part in the ads model where Amazon are creating more opportunities for brands. And it's in the growth phase within Amazon's business. So I think for me, last year was a real mixed bag of pure commercial focus, massive opportunity, some great stuff coming down the tracks from an ads perspective. And I know we'll come on to talk about more of that today, Jake. But it's very easy to miss just some stuff you said, the internal challenges of the brand, with everything that's going on in the economy of keeping up with supply, getting stock into Amazon quick enough, producing it at the right cost so you can face into Amazon's net PPM challenges. My summary would be last year was the year when Amazon started to get really bloody commercial. And actually the focus on Amazon now is how do you build a commercially successful Amazon business. I think people have already been there for some time, but that's what I felt the screws really tightened on last year was how do we do Amazon properly and make money for it whilst growing, not just growing at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's shift on a little bit, guys. I think it's good to get that view of where were we in 2024. Trav, maybe we'll come to you first on vendor. Where do you see vendor going and Amazon going in 2025? What's the journey that Amazon is on, and how do you think 2025 will shape up for vendors?
So in all honesty, a lot of the talks that we've been having recently, I think logistics is pretty much kind of at the forefront. Also, Amazon's pushing for expansion. Amazon's trying to consolidate a lot of their logistics. A lot of the AV and arts that have been coming through recently has been, hey, you should sign up for Picks. It's the best thing since sliced bread. Or you should sign up for Super Picks. And obviously that's a bit of a consolidation. Like you mentioned, they went essentially crazy with just opening warehouses. And now they're realizing we can't actually fill those warehouses, or the cost to serve them are quite expensive. So the future for it as well, I think especially they're going to try and consolidate as much as they can to essentially save the prices. Like I mentioned, going direct to brand, cutting out the middleman, no resellers, no source of the products to go direct to brand, have a direct relationship with them. Either send up vendor flex nodes, set up internal shipping capacities within the own vendor's warehouse, just to really try and cost cut as much as they can and improve the operational efficiency. Especially now that we're out of the EU, I think it's quite a lot harder for Amazon to sort of reach those outside sort of markets with the UK entity. So I'd say logistics is going to be a big focus, especially once you start looking at the chargebacks and some of the more hidden costs of Amazon, if I can say it like that. The amount of charges Amazon's been hitting people with carton compliance, PQVs, PPVs, they've been going through the roof recently. And yeah, so I'd say not that it's never been a sort of focus, but logistics is going to become a really big focus, and that's sort of a lot of the echoes that we've been getting in the sort of past few months.
Do you think brands are prepped for that, Trax? As we were saying that, I just pulled the poll results up, and increasing operational efficiency was second on the list, but some way behind more of the growth stuff around optimizing listings and content. So is there possibly a misalignment there, or do you think that's more of an Amazon focus on sorting the logistical side of things out rather than a brand focus?
Yeah, I think it's more of an Amazon focus, in all honesty. I think the more established brands, obviously, if you can service to Superdrug, Boots, you've already got your own sort of distribution channels, you've already got your own warehouses, so you already know your cost to serve. So in all honesty, it's more of an Amazon focus. But like you mentioned, in terms of content and listing optimization, yeah, I mean, A+, you can go on days about that, but I think the tide is slowly shifting when it comes to content. People, especially on mobile phones, I think 80% of Amazon shoppers are on mobile now. So they want to get as much information as possible with as little time as possible and make an informed decision. They don't have to scroll through the data and all the information, all the text to find what they're looking for. They need it at a glance. They need informative videos. They need informative infographics. And then boom, you make a decision on the spot, essentially, obviously with price consciousness in the background of that too.
Right. Thank you, Trav. Let's move the same question around a little bit. Emma, from a seller point of view, where do you think the focus will be in 2025?
I think there's the two-prong effect of that. So I think for 2025, it's definitely around content, the improvement of content, like Trav said, the use of videos, but also the real look into the sort of back-end keywords, what we're utilizing within the back end of those listings. With seller, there is a lot more control that you can have over your products and your listings. So it's just making sure that the control that you have over content, back end keywords, how visually optimized your listings are, that's going to be the sure winner for clients this year. And like Trav said, 80% of people are on their mobile. So we really, really need to be concentrating on mobile first and really capturing that audience. And then with logistics, the fine balance between sellers using FBM, FBA, Seller Fulfilled Prime, and really finding the profitable balance on how you're utilizing FBA, which comes with a lot of hidden costs and can for some clients just be a no-go. But then also figuring out the balance of FBM, how you manage that within your warehouses, within your businesses, and then really fine-tuning the balance between all three options or further options with 3PL. So yeah, for me, it's definitely the logistics of selling your products, but then also really optimizing them, making them capture that audience that you want, and specifically on mobile. Everyone's on there, especially as a mum, it's my first go-to. So yeah, we need to capture those very, very tired mums and dads as well.
I'd just echo your mobile point there as well, Em, because I think sometimes if you sit here at work as a brand, most of your time is spent looking at your pages on Amazon on a big screen, on a laptop. And then when you see the data, and you almost have to remind yourself to be like, no, that isn't the place you want to be looking, because that isn't where your customers are. So what might look great on your screen, that's not the customer experience that the vast majority of people are going to have. So it's almost putting yourself into that position of the consumer and doing the pages, your A+ content, your brand store, how they would view it on a mobile.
Exactly this. I myself personally use Amazon on my phone as my shopping basket throughout the day. So it's always there in my pocket. It's always there on my desk. If I think about something that I need, it's a quick search and a quick add. And it's those pieces where they're really optimized, where they are visually like attracting me as a customer, they're getting added to my basket almost instantly. So it's really capturing that mobile audience and ensuring that your strategy for 2025 is very mobile heavy.
Yeah, I think putting that in the context of what are you selling and how different is that mobile experience, particularly if you're a brand that's selling a low consideration item of £10, £15 ready, easy purchase, the flow of information on mobile is completely different to that on the desktop. If you're buying on a mobile, it's image, price, buy now button. If you're buying on a desktop, you've got image, bullet points, price sits in a slightly different place, buy now button sits in a slightly different place. If you're selling a £500 robotic lawnmower, you probably need to think more about the desktop customer because that's a considered purchase. You still need to consider mobile, but you've got a different view on that. If you're selling I don't think I've got anything here. I drink hydration tablets all day long. £10, £7, £4 purchase, depending on who you're buying from. It's point, click, buy, and you don't think that purchase through. It's the imagery, it's the price that's driving that decision on mobile.
Definitely that, especially with the strategy for those more considered purchases. So like you said, the £500 plus, if you're looking at mattresses or whatever, that is more of a personal purchase. A desktop strategy there is vital because again, personally, if I'm making a big purchase, I like to do it on the big screen.
We're really showing our age here by this.
I know.
Really millennials and above that like big screen.
Yes.
And Gen Z are all for a big purchase on a small.
Exactly. So it really is that fine balance.
It's ironic. I bought my last car on a mobile phone. I think that's just how the whole world is changing. But yeah, I've done the research offline. So it's that research phase. It's understanding what you're buying dictates a different experience. Jake, I'd like to come to you on ads and your thoughts on 2025 in a second. But something that Trav and Emma just touched on there prompted to me about something else that we saw a lot of in 24, which I think is really going to come to the fore more in 25. You guys have both talked about the profitability on vendor, the logistical challenges. How do you sell your product to make the most money? I've never seen as many conversations around hybrid as I did towards the back end of last year. And I think that will continue to be a major theme into this year with some of the even bigger brands. In our business, we talk about tier 2 and tier 1 brands. Tier 2s last year, those that are doing 2 to 10 million, they were talking about hybrid. I think you're going to see some of those tier 1s really start to have that conversation. One driven by Amazon's profitability challenges and what should I be selling on what model to make the right margin. I also think from a negotiation point of view, to make sure you've got a seller account as a backup, should Amazon come hard on vendor terms, it at least gives you the best of both worlds and more rigor and stability and confidence in your Amazon business. So I think that will continue to be a major trend driven primarily by that profitability challenge. Or refreshed view on profitability, should I say?
Yeah, fully agreed.
Yeah,
you don't need to worry about.
Sorry.
No. Go for it. We're both like passionate about it.
I'm very eager. So yeah, the hybrid conversations were fully apparent when both myself and Travis were at the toy fair last week. Every single brand was saying we're looking into the hybrid, or they're already invested into the hybrid model. From a profitability stance, from a stock control stance, and more people are moving towards that model and how they work with their business with Amazon.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of extra benefits. Oh, sorry, Dan.
No, you're right, you can go.
I think there's a lot of extra benefits as well, just further down the line. I mean, if you look at something as basic as Vine, for example, vendors extortionate, and everyone knows you need Vine for a good sort of retail readiness plan to kick it off. So why don't you use your seller account, fraction of the cost, get the reviews and ratings there, get the glance views, get the sell through, use that as a leveraging tool with your VM and saying, hey, look, I'd like to transition this to vendor. It's already retail ready, paid a fraction of the cost of the reviews by doing it through seller. But even different promo metrics, brand tailored promotions. Emma, I do not know as much details about that, but I'm really jealous that you get brand tailored promotions. So customers that have looked at the detail pages, you can remarket promos to them. People that have put products into a basket but not checked out, you can remarket to them as well through different promos, brand store followers. There's a lot of extra ways to create a full sort of 360 sort of business, if I could say it like that, by going hybrid. Things you can do on vendor that you can't do on seller. And that's becoming less and less and less, but things that you can particularly do on seller that you can't do on vendor, including the price control, and then really keeping your business close to your heart, essentially like that, and not playing all your cards during negotiations with Amazon.
Excellent. Right, we've done the hybrid. Hybrid had to be talked about. We had to have that conversation. Jake, I'll come to you. Looking forward to 2025. You've come out of 2024 with loads of new ad features, loads of really exciting stuff going on. How's 2025 shaping up for ads, and what do you think the trends will be?
I think, it's realistically about those new features, and I think it comes down to a few of the points we discussed around mobile first as well. I think we see that shift. When you look at it from an ad perspective, one of the biggest differences is if you search for a product on Amazon on mobile, you see exclusively ads, or you can actually see any organic listings, whereas on a desktop you get to see some organic listings with a heavy mix on ads as well. So that's an important concern. I think we're starting to see a shift with more vertical video for advertising as well, as Amazon video ad placements get more prominent and they put more resources and time into giving more locations for video ads. I think that's going to need to be a big focus for brands, is to make sure they've got that mobile first video experience for advertising as well. And I think one of the major sort of criticisms around Amazon advertising in the past, compared to Google, was addressability of advertising and being able to target the right audiences. One thing we've wanted in Amazon advertising is that abandoned cart advertising, and we've finally got that now with Amazon Marketing Cloud to do that with our sponsored products and sponsored brand adverts. So I think those are the biggest changes, is really the addressability, being able to build your own custom audiences, get more granular with your targeting, and when we talk about profitability, we can allocate budget now not on an ad format but actually to different audiences. So we can do more around retargeting and brand awareness, or we can do more with business targeting. Is one of the newer features which is really useful. So those are the key features. And I think from a data standpoint, functionality where Amazon Marketing Cloud really shines as well is in the multi-touch attribution model. So again, with advertising and profitability being concerned, with upper funnel advertising that doesn't maybe have the highest ROI, we know it has an effect on brand awareness and building that brand presence on Amazon. We finally get that multi-touch attribution model now to understand the true impact of how that ad, the upper funnel advert that maybe a customer's clicked on, actually affects the final purchase decision, which might be a week later or something like that.
I think that's going to be absolutely game changing this year, Jake. I go back to the first job I took in a brand, which was when my son was born, so it's 10, 11 years ago, and they were a big .com retailer. The first question I got asked at interview was, are you familiar with attribution modeling, and can you help us run that within our business? Because we were spending millions on Google. Like, Meta wasn't that big at the time. 11 years, we had to wait for that to come to Amazon. And if Amazon's trying to get people to move up a funnel into DSP and trying to get that ad spend spread across the full funnel, which we all believe in, we all know is the right thing to do, they've got to give brands the way to measure that. And I think that will be a big unlocker to, one, brands being able to spend more to drive more growth, particularly in that upper funnel, and two, being able to be more efficient and targeted with the campaigns and understanding how to bring somebody in, nudge them down, drag them across the line, and then get them to repurchase. I think Amazon have done a very good job of getting brands to part with their cash on that basis without having attribution in place. I think the attribution will be a huge unlocker.
Yeah. And I think one prediction, we talked about mobile as well. One thing we don't have yet, but I think we could see this year, is that ability to target mobile customers separate desktop customers. And I think that'll be interesting to see the split of ad spend and ROI too.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jake. And Joe, from a brand's perspective, across every single touch point, seller, vendor, everything, what's your view on 2025?
I guess from a personal perspective, on what kind of we're looking to go for, is ads is a big one. As Jake's mentioned, there's so much more available now. You've just got to use that whole funnel. But like you said, now you've got more data available. That makes it a lot easier in a business to get these things over the line, because everyone's behind the data, aren't they? If you can say, this is where this money is going, and we can actually see what it's returning, that's really good. Whereas, as you mentioned, Andy, previously, ads can sometimes fail, especially when you're a bit more up funnel, that you're just putting money into a pot and you're not really sure exactly where you're returning it. So having that full visibility. So for us, ads is a huge, huge focus. Again, it's like you were saying, everyone uses Amazon because it's just so quick and easy. I think if you took it to the most simplest basis ever, an Amazon customer's lazy. You've just got to, they will search something. You've just got to give them the product that they want. If it fits what they're searching, great. If it looks good, if your content's good, it ticks the box and price, simple. I think sometimes people overcomplicate it, but it can be that simple. So for us, it's very much about the ads. It's also continuing to enhance our product listings. Because I think if you go back a few years or so, they could be that little bit more simplistic, whereas now it's all very visual. And like Jake said, even things on ads, like having the video ads, if you scroll those on a mobile, they work so well because they are so disruptive in the middle of a mobile screen that you tend to get really good returns on it. So it's things like that. And even brand stores seem to be gaining more popularity. I'm not sure whether it's coming to the UK yet, but I had seen that in the US, brand stores are going to start appearing actually in a search. If you would search a brand store will come as a search result. So you kind of think Amazon are clearly putting a lot more effort behind that from that perspective. And then I guess also for us, it is those operational issues again. So looking at where we can drive those efficiencies, which then in turn drives the growth and actually makes the business more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that then? I guess the next question. So picking up on that operational efficiencies piece, that's been a big focus from Amazon. Well, I think maybe not a big focus from Amazon. Amazon have put a profitability focus into businesses. We've seen that then come through in business, looking at how do I run my Amazon business internally.
Yeah.
What the brands be looking at in 2025 to make sure that they are operationally efficient, they're absolutely robust and solid and rigorous internally, both from a vendor and seller point of view, and then equally from your point of view as a brand, because you're in both areas.
I think it's obviously worth knowing exactly what you're spending as well. Like, look at every single part of the process and see where it is. I know that, Travis, you mentioned Pix before, and Amazon will push people for that. For us as a small to medium business, that was something that we opted into about a year and a half ago, maybe. And actually, when you stop and look at it, it works out really well for us because, as you mentioned, you've got so many Amazon warehouses. You've only got to drive up a motorway to see multiple of them, haven't you? And when you figure out that you're trying to deliver into every single one of those, the efficiencies that it drives by just being like, okay, we'll deliver into 1 or 2 warehouses, absolute maximum. Cost saving straight away, pretty much, makes it more efficient. And then it's also, I think, having those conversations with Amazon, especially if you've got an ABS contact, utilize them and see what's available for you. Like historically, we used to be getting POs twice a week, which you just get so on top of yourself. It's going to so many warehouses. Have a few conversations and you can get that consolidated down so you only get them once a week. Even just things like that. And then you can look at your internal processes and just make sure that they're a lot more aligned.
I should introduce you, Joe, as the queen of getting things out of Amazon as well, actually. From all that conversation, you seem to be the absolute master of getting Amazon to bend over backwards for you as well.
I think it's about building that relationship, isn't it? I think so many people, I will forever fly the flag and say this, that so many people dehumanize Amazon so much and see it as this huge, massive corporation. It's faceless, when actually, if you've got a contact that you can speak with, treat them like a normal buyer. Have a conversation with them, build that relationship, and always be a little bit cheeky and ask for what you want, because worst case scenario, you just get told no. Whereas sometimes you do get what you want.
Shy pigs go hungry.
Yes.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Joanne said there. I think at the end of the day, I know when I was in the sort of the AVS program and back in my Amazon days, it feels good to be noticed by your brands and by your retail sort of contacts. If they if they invite you to NPD days or sort of days where they do new product releases, you get to try the products, look at the products, get a few samples here and there. You really want to engage more with the brand because you can see something tangible, you can feel it, you can engage with it. You know that at the end of the day, there's a person trying to hit their KPIs. They know you trying to hit your KPIs, and you almost meet each other in the middle type thing. So I think, yeah, really focusing on building those interpersonal relationships. I know we spoke about it in a previous webinar, just to like manage relationship management with Amazon. Such an important piece is building that relationship with your contacts, whether it be supply chain, advertising, VMs, AVS, cat leads, really just build an ecosystem where everyone hits their KPIs, everyone's sort of happy, but it's not just a take. You also need to give to Amazon also, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of that as well that I've found, especially if you're having challenges internally, like if you're growing so quickly and then you have got challenges with keeping up with that, be honest with them. Have those conversations and just say, look, these are the challenges I've got. How can you help? Because if you can help me, we both win. We're both going to drive the business forward. So I think it's just those relationships and just being honest and seeing what you can get out of it. And also with AVS, you're paying enough, aren't you? So you may as well get your money's worth.
I heard a shocker this week, and the brand will remain anonymous, but there is one brand that is a name that you'd recognise, but it's not a L'Oreal, Coca-Cola, Pepsi scale of brand. They're paying £50,000 a month for AVS. And it was phenomenal. You start to question the value of what you're getting for that. Where else could that 50 grand be spent? Where else would it drive? You know, Jake, I also Jake's face light up there thinking that should go into ad budgets, sure.
that place, sure.
Can I just take us back to what you said on there on Picks, Joe, and come back to that operational efficiency point? A few questions maybe in your direction, Trav and Emma as well. I think it's very easy to look at something like Picks, and I can see a few questions coming on it and think silver bullet there to operational efficiency. But does Picks apply to every brand in the same way? Is it the silver bullet that solves an operational efficiency, or should a brand actually be looking at it more in the context of their business, their challenges, their internal cost infrastructure? Is it Picks? Is it Super Picks? Is it vendor flex? Should I be actually looking at an FBA or FBM or SFP model instead for my business? Is it as linear as Picks is a silver bullet instead?
I wouldn't say so. I think it's got to work for your business, hasn't it? Like every business is unique in the way that they operate. You might have a really good operational infrastructure and be really set up for that, especially like really big businesses, in which case you might look at it and say, actually, does that percentage fee that I'm paying, is that worth it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For us, it really, really is, and was something that at this part of growth of the business, it's just fundamental and frees up a lot of time for capacity of people. It saves up money, but I can appreciate that that isn't always going to be the case for all businesses. It really depends on what logistics operations you've got in place.
Yeah, fully agree. It's not a silver bullet by any means. You need to do a little bit of internal reflection and see, is it worth it for your business? If you've got tons of warehouses sort of in the Midlands and center of the country, south of the country, might not make sense because you have logistical hubs in each of the regions. So your cost to serve, even if the Amazon warehouse is out of the way, it's a lot cheaper than going into a centralized hub that might be on the other end of the country and get dispersed through to Amazon. So yeah, I think as cliche as it is, always look at the data, always do some number crunching, speak to your carriers. If you've got great terms with your carriers and you can actually service their all the FCs at a reasonable cost and it's not worth doing Picks, then rather put that sort of accrual into something else where you can get extra intrinsic value out of it with Amazon. So yeah, it's not by any means a silver bullet. Super Picks is also something that's coming into play now. So instead of 3 or 4 sort of FCs you deliver to, it's basically 1. And they're also pushing it especially heavily in Europe, where you deliver into 1 FC in Poland, for example, and they distribute it into the wider EU network. So something like that could be a really nice sort of step forward, getting into the EU operations if you don't have local bases there, local partners there to distribute your products. But again, that's on a sort of case-by-case basis. It's not like a blanket one-size-fits-all. And in terms of vendor flex, again, if you've got the space in your warehouse and you're willing to pay that accrual and you're willing to have Amazon sort of employees in your warehouse as a vendor flex node, use it during seasonal peaks. I know when I was at Amazon, especially some of the brands like L'Oreal, Johnson & Johnson, and when I was still in the pantry team as well, RRP pantry, they would have vendor flex nodes during peak seasons, just so you got away from the capacity constraints during Q4. Everyone struggled with capacity constraints. So if you've got a vendor flex node, it's kind of a nice little bypass past that, especially if you're in the FMCG or gifting realm where Q4 is your sort of make or break period. So yeah, it's not a one size fits all by any means, but definitely to treat it on a case by case basis if it makes sense for your business.
And that's the same for seller side as well. So whether it's FBA, FBM or seller fulfilled prime, there are some huge strategies that we work on where we create that fine balance between the three. Or if it's profitable for you and it's easier logistically to rely on FBA, that can work extremely well. It's just ensuring that you're really calculating the costs. And also now with that new change with Amazon with lost FBA inventory and how they're refunding or giving the money back to clients, it's really, really taking into consideration every single aspect of how you're getting that product to your customer. Seller fulfilled Prime is incredible for businesses who have the logistics and the know-how of how to maintain that. Amazon can be extremely strict on that, so it's ensuring that you're keeping up with all the percentages that they calculate. But it can be trial and error on what works for you and your business. And like Trav said, it's really calculating the data, fine-tuning how to operate with Amazon and your business perfectly for you.
I think that absolutely sums it up perfectly. And I think it's about understanding your business, knowing there's that new commercial eye on things from Amazon, and how do you need to change and adapt this year to make sure you can still deliver a profitable business in the confines of what Amazon are not giving you to play with.
100%.
Guys, I've got a whole host of questions I've prepared to ask you guys, but we've ended up in quite good conversation and quite naturally flowed through a lot of it. And alongside that, we've got more questions than ever before coming in for one of our webinars. So I'm going to take us straight into audience Q&A if you're okay with that, and go a little bit away from the plan. We often get into the Q&A and then skid across the line at the last minute, but we've got some very, very good questions coming in. Let's delve into these. We'll go first with the question. I'm going to try and tackle these in popularity order. So if you're watching this and want to get into the questions, upvote stuff and we'll try and get to it. Providing you don't make them too tricky for us on a Thursday morning. So we'll go with Kirsty first. And Kirsty's question is, with the amount of cheap knockoffs increasing, driving prices down and ad spend up, what is your advice for staying profitable without sacrificing anything about your products?
I'd say from event side things, exclusivity has become a really big piece. Creating specific products just for Amazon, whether it's a specific color, a specific quantity, a specific size. You know that is the only distribution channel within sort of your ecosystem that is selling it. So you don't really have to worry about competition. Knockoffs are always going to be knockoffs, I get it, sadly. But that's where the Amazon Transparency Program comes into. Yes, it's a bit of an investment, but at least with the Amazon Transparency Program, for example, you get a QR code that's fixated to your product. The customer can scan it. They know what they're paying for is what they're getting. It's not a cheap Chinese import or a product that's not safe for like usage, or if it's a toy or a baby product, it's not going to harm your kids or your family or anything like that. So I think having like the seals of approval through transparency program, and then exactly like I mentioned, having exclusive distribution channels through Amazon, exclusive product ranges just available through Amazon, allows you to bypass a lot of those problems where there might be leaks in your supply chain or other retailers are selling it and you're price matching it, and then you get into a bit of a price war and a bit of a knockoff war. So yeah, if the price is down sort of thing, price matching is always going to be there for vendor, unfortunately, but a lot of problems are sort of fixed with the exclusivity piece, where you know what you're selling to Amazon is what you're going to get out of Amazon, not going to be price matching. And also it's a really nice negotiation tactic when you go into AVN. Amazon's going to really appreciate that, because they know they're not going to have to come to you in a few months' time and say, hey, we're margin matching, we need to be accretive, we need some MCP funding, we need some SOA funding, and it just gets into a really awkward conversation then. So yeah, exclusivity and Amazon transparency would probably be a first port of call from my side.
I think I was looking at this from a slightly different lens, maybe not just knockoff as in copycat product, but lots of Me Too products coming into the market at lower price points. Dare I say, Kirsty, I'm not sure this is an Amazon question, but more of a retail challenge and more of one of product differentiation. How do you create a product that stands up in the market? So if I was to take a product in any category and sell it into Tesco's, there will always be B&M and The Range and Wilko back in the day selling something comparable at a lower price point. So I think for me, the challenge here is more one of how do you, one, create a product that is desirable and valuable to the customer you're targeting, and two, how do you use the tools available to you on Amazon to get that value across? want to bring it into Joe's world to bring an example out. Joe works at a fantastic skincare brand. There are lots and lots and lots of soaps, shampoos and conditioners also available on the market at a significantly lower price point than Joe's brand sells at. But Joe, your brand has got a point in the market. It's got a brand ethos behind it. It's got a reason to exist. It's got a customer cohort that buys into that product because it believes and buys into what the product is, what it does to them, and the role it plays in their world. You're going to get competitors every single day on Amazon in the generic sense of shampoos, conditioners, hand lotions, etc., and even into your household products. For me, it's the product that's doing the winning, and then using the tools on Amazon to tell the consumer why they should buy yours over somebody else's.
I think it's that thing as well, isn't it? It's like, yes, be aware of what other people are doing, but focus mainly on what you're doing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got to believe in your brand and see the value in that. And don't cheapen that just because you've got someone else that's buying something. If someone's buying something cheaper, they might not be the customer that was going to buy into you anyway. But as you've mentioned, it's having that value in your brand, looking at what your points of difference are, looking at what those value points to the customer are as well, and then really utilising that space that you've got on Amazon. Because I think actually Amazon's quite nice and unique in that way. If you're on a shelf in Tesco, you've got very little room to tell people about why someone should buy your brand. On Amazon, you can put it in front of someone with an ad. You can give it a headline. You can put a video ad on. That's before they've even clicked on your page. You've got a whole host of images that you can be quite creative with. You've then got the brand story, which you can then really get all of your brand ethos and your values across to a customer and buy them in before you've even got to the A+ content about a product. And then you've even got your brand store again on top of that. So you've effectively got your own website on there. So you've got all these tools available to you. So I think you just need to really back your own brand and just accept people are going to bring out similar products, but show the consumer what the value is to them of buying into you.
Mm-hmm. I would wholeheartedly agree with that with regards to brand presence. There are little to no cost pieces that you can work on within Amazon, like you said, with regards to your A+, your brand story, your storefront. Something that we're doing a big piece on at the minute is to compete with those lower price point, the knockoff type products. And it's really making sure that you're not competing with them in the sense of lowering your brand presence, lowering your imagery and your content. It's really just maintaining and looking at your brand itself and pushing it out there and being confident in that brand presence. Like you said, if someone's going to buy a lower price point product, then they might not necessarily be the customer that is looking for your product. So targeting those personas, building those personas in the background and really targeting your Amazon presence and your visual presence based on those personas that you already have the data for. And it's not like dipping down in your brand presence and your brand standards, it's increasing them.
Yeah, I'm sure as well I know there's a point on that about the advertising, which I'm sure Jake will on and do a better job than I will. But obviously you talk about it driving your cost per clicks up. But I think that's where you have to actually look at bidding wisely as well and what you're going against. Because as you'd mentioned, Andy, there is a whole cohort of body washers, shower gels and things that you can buy out there for £1-2. There's no point us going really hard on bidding against those kind of competitors, because if someone's decided they're spending £1 on a product, that's probably not going to be the customer that's going to convert. So it's about using that spend wisely and going after those consumers and those places where actually you're more likely to convert.
Yeah.
There's two key things there. I'd say definitely, like you mentioned, if you're looking at those CPCs, it's understanding what exactly you're targeting. Perhaps to target your ideal consumer, it's looking at slightly longer tail keywords with a bit more descriptors, so you're not going after those main keywords where cheap and cheerful is always going to win out in that space. So it's being really wise there. And then definitely from an ad perspective, there's plenty of tools you can use to really sell that brand identity and that brand presence that isn't just putting your product first and foremost. It's selling more of a brand experience on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a good example of it as well is like premium fashion and premium beauty. They talk about like the level of quality of ingredients or what the product's made out of, or is it locally made in the UK and it's not imported. So it's really not sacrificing your brand values for the sake of making a sale. Also, just looking at some of the accreditations. A lot of people are environmentally conscious now. So if you've got a climate pledge friendly badge, for example, that might make or break a sale if someone's a conscious consumer on that. SIOC's another one. You're not doing packaging waste. So yeah, I think there's a whole host of things that you can add into the equation. But yeah, ultimately, like Joanne said, don't sacrifice your brand image for the sake of making a sale, because then it's just a race to the bottom on prices.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Trav, hold that thought. You're ready for you to give some vendor expertise. Got a great question from Chris. Chris runs a hybrid model with AVN, 1P, 3P from the UK. They're trying to crack EU, but there's very low demand on the vendor model with infrequent POs, and all that's impacting profitability because they'll be sending lots of little bits of orders into Europe. Sounds like he's using some 3P to drive some demand, along with opening other partners in EU territories and advertising. They've been offered the PICS program. Do we have any tips? I guess the crux of that really is, how do you get that vendor business to scale profitably in EU with the model that Chris has got?
Yep. So good question. I'd say focus on the cost to serve. So obviously, if it makes sense to use a 3P and maybe you got like bulky items without knowing all the details, yeah, might make more sense to go through a 3P, especially when it comes into vendor. I think the constraints is 25 kgs, for example. But regardless of that, have a quite frank conversation with your VM and their supply chain team and say, look, what are the benefits to you? What are the benefits to me? Are the orders going to be erratic? Can we consolidate the orders so my team can use EDI, or if you're still doing it manual, which I really hope you're not, they can consolidate their time and just make the process a lot easier. Like Joanne referenced right at the beginning, having an order pattern on a Monday and a Wednesday can be time consuming, and also it's a full-time job sometimes, especially if your carton compliance is in line. So your PQVs, your PPVs leads to chargebacks, leads to extra costs. So have quite a frank conversation with your VM and say, look, what are the intrinsic benefits? What is the value of this? And also look at the accrual amount, really work out, is that percentage sort of conductive to us being profitable in the sense of logistics? If it's not, then I'd say push back and say, look, maybe PICS isn't for us at this time because the cost to serve is cheaper for us to do it individually, and come with data. Don't just say no to Amazon, because Amazon will carpet bomb you with data, and then it sort of gets a little bit in the weeds. It's a he say, she say, and oh, this is what I feel type thing. Come back with data, come back with facts and figures, know your own cost to serve, know your own logistical cost, your own input cost, your own warehouse cost, all those good things, and really weigh it out essentially. Is it worth going into the EU with PICS, or should you just stick to your 3P and negotiate better terms with them? Happy to pick this up in a more personal sort of setting if you'd like also. Yeah,
it's a great shout, that Trav. Actually, we've got lots of Q&A that is coming in here. More than happy to take any of this online and give you some more detail there, Chris. I think just to add my penny to that, I think your challenge, the crux that is one around, it's easy to look at the operational side of what you're asking, but I think it's also one around demand generation. If you had a great volume of orders coming through Europe, I suspect this wouldn't be such a big question. So I'd start focusing as well on how can you drive that European demand. And I think that's clearly what you started to do when you're looking at 3P. I'd be looking possibly at Born to Run as a way of starting to inject stock into the market if needed as well. But I'd fundamentally start with, where is demand? Where can I drive demand? And you're probably going to want to do that in a country, not in a continent. So I wouldn't be looking at trying to drive demand across all of Europe. I'd be picking Germany, France, Italy, Spain, probably Germany, and then try and build a business there, because then you can become operationally efficient supplying that business, and then your lateral expansion into secondary, third, fourth European markets becomes a lot easier because you've got that flow through of stock that's then working. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll give you some food for thought there, Chris, but as I say, I'll do a bit of a wrap up at the end and share some details if you want some more detail or more time on that. Jumping down to a question from Lucy. What strategy should my brand focus on in 2025 to improve profitability?
I've got a few suggestions for that one. So some of them you may already be doing, and maybe you just need to enhance what you're doing within those different programs. But I think from the conversation that I had yesterday with a client around profitability and competitiveness within the Amazon space, it's really looking at the tiered and bundled pricing. So if you can utilize something that is not as profitable as a product that is really profitable, bundling together if there is that opportunity, and then creating that balance between a product that you can use to invest with turnover and cash flow, and then a product that's actually going to bring the profit into your business. Really look at the psychological sort of pricing tactics within Amazon. So that whole 0.99 pence is shown to convert better than a solid £12 or £13, and really look into the actual psychological way that you can help get that product to convert with the price that you need in order to be profitable. And then utilize the dynamic pricing and the AI-based tools around pricing. So making sure that you are competing with the other brands. Obviously, like Trav said, not a race to the bottom, but if you are trying to win, fight for that buy box, making sure that you are being competitive. And there are automated ways that you can do that where you don't have to manually sit and look at your competitors all the time. Yeah. And also subscribe and save. It's a real easy one to set up. I'm tied into so many subscribes and saves that I forget about them, and they arrive on my doorstep, and I'm really thankful for them because I do actually need the products like multivitamins. So really channeling that subscribe and save strategy can help. You're getting that return customer, you're increasing your orders, and in turn should hopefully be increasing your profitability.
Yeah, and from a vendor side, I'd say obviously making your AVN negotiations work for you, making your cost price work for you, really try and push on extra value. Maybe focus on operational inefficiencies. Chargebacks is a big issue. If your carton compliance isn't right, your PQVs, your PPVs are going up, that's just money on the table that Amazon's going to take away. And then thirdly, I'd also say be a lot more strategic with your pricing. So exclusive products, like I mentioned, they've got a great price point because you know you're selling into Amazon at that price point. You know what the margin is going to be at the outset of it, and you know what Amazon's making on it. But along with that, be a lot more strategic with your promotions. You don't need to run year-long promotions. Run promotions during strategic periods and then have advertising to back them up to really like launch them. So the visibility is there, the price is there, and the more the likelihood it is going to convert is a lot higher. So be quite strategic with your pricing, quite dynamic, like Emma mentioned, but also especially promotions. Don't just go all in. Be strategic about it. Do the best selling lines. Don't maybe focus on tail lines to be in lightning deals or top deals. Smash a coupon on. Any sale's a good sale, but also really be strategic with your pricing and go for the prime days, the spring sales, end of summer sales, and Black Fridays.
Excellent. I think the only thing I want to add from a profitability perspective is have a piece of tech that can pull you and Amazon P&L together in almost real time, and start to fix your profitability by understanding what your profitability actually is. Because the number of times we get into conversations where we hear Amazon's horrendous, we don't make that much profit, and when you actually get into the detail, you've got some absolute dog lines that aren't making profit, and there's very, very clear reasons why. You've got some phenomenal lines that are making profit, but what you get is a generic message of profit is tough. For me, this applies across vendor and seller. Understand what is the true cost of getting your product into the market, understand the true profit margins you're making, and start with that data, and then work out how you can start to change the dynamic on that. Emma, you got some great tips there. Bundling. I used to sell a skincare product on Amazon. £14 item cost me £3 to ship it on FBA. We worked out if we did a 4 for 3 bundle and gave away the 4th tin, the FBA cost only went up to about £4, and it was actually cheaper to give away that 4th item than it was to sell 4 tins with the FBA cost in. 15-20% of our customers started buying in bulk, and our margin percentage went through the roof on the item. Shrinking packaging down, getting rid of air, stop shipping air. That really starts to hit down your supply chain. It's a big thing to do, but there's so many efficiencies that can be had when you understand product by product profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I want to come up for air. We are 58 minutes in, a couple of minutes to go. What I've realised after doing these webinars for quite some time is on the hour people drop off. They've got meetings in the diaries, and you're all keen to get somewhere else. So I think for me, massive thank you to you, our guests, for joining us. Massive thank you to you, our viewers, listeners, whatever you want to call it, for listening in for the last hour. Hopefully you've taken some really good insight from this as to what 2025 might bring. I'm very, very conscious we've got a lot more questions that we've not had time to answer. If anybody wants to speak to any of our guests on here, I can say that clearly for Trav, Emma and Jake. I'm sure Joe wouldn't mind having a chat based on what I know about Joe. drop me a line. You can get me at andy@ventureforge.co.uk. Drop me a quick email. I'll happily introduce you to any of our guests if you want some follow-up time or follow-up questions. And we'll also follow up today with anybody who's asked a question, but we've not got to with full detail. I'll say thanks again for joining us. Our next webinar is about a month from now. We'll be sending out details in the next couple of weeks, and we'll look forward to seeing you again then. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Take care.